Kindly be seated so that we can begin the program. Thank you. May I also request you to kindly switch off your cell phones so that we are not interrupted. Thank you so much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Ambassador Ali Jahangir Siddiqui and the Embassy of Pakistan, I warmly welcome you for this special event on Kashmir Black Day. To begin the proceedings, we will hear a recitation from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
الحمد لله رب العالمين
All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds.
الرحمن الرحيم
The entirely merciful, the especially merciful.
مالك يوم الدين
Sovereign of the day of recompense.
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين
It is you we worship and you we ask for help.
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم
Guide us to the straight path.
صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين
The path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have evoked your anger or of those who are astray.
Each year, October 27th is a day that is marked by all Pakistanis to express solidarity with their Kashmiri brethren, since this was the day when Indian occupation forces marched into the Kashmir Valley in 1948. Ladies and gentlemen, let us observe 1 minute of silence in honor of the martyrs of Kashmir. Thank you. To begin the event, we have a very special video message that has been recorded by His Excellency Sardar Masood Khan, President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, who will highlight the various aspects of the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir dispute.
Today, the people of Jammu and Kashmir are observing the blood. 71 years ago, on October the 27th, 1947, India, through an armed invasion and aggression, occupied part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Since then, it has massacred hundreds of thousands of Kashmiris, pushed 500,000 Kashmiris out of the state to Pakistan and Azad Kashmir, and has committed crimes against humanity which have been recorded by independent international organizations. More than 70 years ago, and subsequently, the United Nations Security Council decided that the Kashmir dispute would be resolved in accordance with the wishes of the Kashmiri people under the auspices of the United Nations. India continues to violate UN Security Council resolutions and obstructs its decisions. Instead, it chooses to subject Kashmiris to state terrorism to perpetuate its occupation. It has not succeeded in doing that. In the recent past, 700,000 Indian occupation forces deployed in the territory have intensified their brutal military campaign against unarmed, innocent Kashmiris. Hundreds of Kashmiris have been killed. Hundreds have been blinded for life by the use of pellet guns. Women, including girls, have been raped. And sexual violence. And to teach Kashmiris a lesson. Rights to education, health and freedom of expression have been trampled. Thousands of political leaders and activists are under detention and are being tortured. Forced disappearances and fake encounters are rampant. All these gross and consistent violations of human rights have been recorded by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in a comprehensive report issued this year. There are instances of genocide, ethnic cleansing and war crimes being committed by India in Kashmir. In 1947, the Maharaja of Kashmir, Indian National Army and RSS extremists massacred 250,000 Kashmiris. This was the first Holocaust after the Holocaust of the Second World War. No Nuremberg trials have been conducted for the victims of this Holocaust. We condemn all these atrocities in the Indian occupied Kashmir and appeal to the international community and all those who care for human rights, human dignity and liberty to intercede and stop India and help Kashmiris attain their right to self-determination. On this occasion, I want to debunk two false narratives which are used by India to justify its occupation of IOK and its denial of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. India says that it airlifted its troops on October 27, 1947, because the Maharaja of Kashmir had acceded to India and tribesmen from Pakistan had entered into the Kashmir territory with the support of the government of Pakistan. Independent historical research has substantiated that the Maharaja never acceded to India and that an instrument of accession of dubious validity was extracted from him under duress after a military invasion of the territory had started. The tribesmen who were volunteers entered Kashmir on the 22nd of October, and by then a big chunk of the territory had already been liberated by the valiant people of Azad Kashmir who had risen against the oppressive rule of the Maharaja. There was absolutely no legal justification for India's invasion of the Jammu and Kashmir state. Another stark reality is that India had been preparing for a massive military operation against the state of Jammu and Kashmir since June 1947 in order to annex it to the Indian Union. Preparatory steps included installation of wireless equipment at the Srinagar airport in September, continued supply of arms and ammunition in the months of August, September and October, and deployment and concentration of Indian forces along the India-Jammu border. The Indian Deputy Prime Minister Vallabhbhai Patel and Defence Minister Baldev Singh, with the active support of the Viceroy of India, Lord Mountbatten, and Jammu and Kashmir Prime Minister MC Mahajan, supervised the planning and execution of the military intervention on October the 27th, 1947. It is also alleged by Indian propagandists that the UN Security Council resolutions could not be implemented and a plebiscite in Jammu and Kashmir could not be held because Pakistan did not comply with Security Council Resolution 47, which asked Pakistan to make its best endeavors to secure withdrawal from the state of Jammu and Kashmir of tribesmen and Pakistani nationals who had entered the state for the purpose of fighting. This contention is patently flawed and false. The moment Resolution 47 was passed, both India and Pakistan objected to it. For Pakistan and Kashmiris, India was an invader and an occupier of the state, and therefore the withdrawal of troops could not be applied to one country. The Security Council then started working on a balanced reduction of troops of both India and Pakistan. In 1949, the Security Council asked its Canadian delegate, General A.G.L. McNaughton, to formally consult India and Pakistan towards a demilitarization plan. On 22nd of December 1949, McNaughton proposed that both Pakistani and Indian forces should be reduced to a minimum level. In regard to demilitarization, he made no distinction between India and Pakistan. McNaughton's proposals were adopted in Security Council Resolution 80, and he was appointed as a mediator. India refused to accept this proposal. Consultations continued, and after a thorough examination of the matter, the Security Council, in its Resolution 98 on December the 23rd, 1952, allowed both India and Pakistan to maintain a limited number of their forces on each side of the ceasefire line to maintain law and order. The proposed number for Pakistan was 3,000 to 6,000 armed forces, and for India, 12,000 to 18,000 armed forces. Pakistan endorsed the proposal. India did not. The bare fact is that India did not allow the creation of conditions necessary for holding a free and impartial plebiscite under the auspices of the United Nations. Sir Owen Dixon, an eminent Australian jurist and the United Nations representative for India and Pakistan, recorded in document S 1971 India's refusal to demilitarize. This is what he said, and I quote, "In the end, I became convinced that India's agreement would never be obtained to demilitarization in any form or to provisions governing the period of plebiscite of any such character as would, in my opinion, permit the plebiscite being conducted in conditions sufficiently guarding against intimidation and other forms of influence and abuse by which the freedom and fairness of the plebiscite might be imperiled." The people of Jammu and Kashmir are passing through the darkest period of their history. We need your support to end repression in the Indian occupied Kashmir and to find a just and lasting resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions. Please step forward for Kashmiris. Step forward for humanity before it is too late. Long live Azad Kashmir, long live Pakistan.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have assembled a panel of eminent speakers who will dilate upon various aspects of the Kashmir dispute. I first request Sardar Zulfikar Hussain Khan, who is a prominent Kashmiri leader and General Secretary of the Kashmiri American Welfare Association, to kindly share his views.
His Excellency Ambassador Ali Jahangir Siddiqui Sahib, ladies and gentlemen and friends. October 27th is celebrated all over the world as the Day of Occupation. Today we are observing October 27th as a day of grief and sorrow, because it was on that day in 1947 that India sent its army to occupy our land without the consent of the people and in defiance of international norms. This year, our leadership in Indian occupied Kashmir, namely Sayyid Ali Gilani, Mir Muhammad Farooq, and Yasin Malak, have called all Kashmiris all over the world to demonstrate on October 27th as a symbol of their unity and to resist India's ugly occupation. We here in Washington metropolitan area are more heartedly responding to that bold and courageous call. Human rights violation in Kashmir perpetrated by Indian military and parliamentary troops have been documented by all international human rights organizations. Very recently, it was also documented in the United Nations report issued by the Human Rights High Commissioner. The new United Nations High Commissioner, Mrs. Michelle Bachelet, said in her report in September 2018 that the people of Kashmir have the same right to human rights and dignity as the people all over the world. She urged India to allow the United Nations delegations to visit Kashmir to assess the situation, but India does not allow such a delegation to visit Kashmir. It clearly shows that India has something to hide. India knows that the presence of 2/3 of a million army has made Kashmir the largest army concentration in the world. India knows that the European parliamentary delegation in its report called Kashmir the most beautiful prison on earth. India knows that the black laws have given total impunity to shoot, to kill the innocent Kashmiris. Until today, Indian Army has been responsible in killing more than 100,000 innocent Kashmiris. Kashmir, which was known as the paradise on earth, does not exist anymore. That paradise, that Jannat has become the hellfire for the people of Kashmir. It has become the killing field for young and old in Kashmir. Just this week, there was a total boycott of local bodies election in Kashmir. According to the report issued by the government, less than 4% people cast votes in the valley of Kashmir. This was the total humiliation for the government of India. Next day, Indian Army went directly to Kulgam, which is 20 miles away from Srinagar, killing 14 innocent Kashmiris. On Tuesday of this week, the Hurriyat delegation wanting to visit the grieved families, they were all detained, including Gilani Saab, Mirwa Saab, and Yasin Saab. We thank the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan Saab, for strongly condemning these brutal killing in Kulgam. We hope that the government of Pakistan can use its diplomatic channels to urge the friendly country to persuade India to respond to the initiative taken by the Imran Khan side to settle the Kashmir dispute through dialogue and negotiation. Thank you all. Have a nice and blessed evening.
Thank you, sir. Now, we will watch a documentary that is specially put together for Kashmir Black Day.
Kashmiris all over the world observe 27th of October as Blood Day. On this unfortunate day in 1947, India landed its troops in Kashmir and illegally occupied the princely state. To give its illegal occupation a legal colour, India lied in the United Nations, claiming that Indian Army had occupied Kashmir for restoration of peace and future of Kashmir would be decided by the people of the state through a free and fair plebiscite. However, this Indian promise could not be fulfilled even after the lapse of 70 years. For the past 70 years, Kashmiris are fighting against this illegal Indian occupation of the state, holding protest demonstrations, knocking the doors of all international fora. United Nations has passed over 18 resolutions on the issue of Kashmir, but none of them could be implemented. Over 800,000 Indian troops have been deployed in occupied Kashmir, who have been brutalizing the Kashmiri populace for demanding their inherent right to self-determination. Kashmir's genocide is continuing without any let-up, and tens of thousands of Kashmiris have been killed, their houses destroyed, while rape and torture of women is being used as a tool of war. Eyesight of Kashmiri youth is being snatched through the use of Kashmir-specific pellet guns.
One of the most dangerous weapons being used against protesters in Kashmir is the pellet-firing shotgun. A number of people have been killed and thousands injured by shotgun pellets since July 2016. Many people have been partially or completely blinded, and I am urging the security forces to completely halt their use of this inaccurate and deadly weapon during crowd control operations.
The horrific tale of Kashmiri's woes is very old, as at the time of partition, activists of Rashtriya Sevak Sangh and the army of Maharaja started killing harmless Kashmiris, which cannot be explained through words. The army of Maharaja gathered tens of thousands of Kashmiris with the promise to send them to Pakistan, but they were massacred at the banks of River Tavi, and their bodies were thrown in the river. In the incident, over 500,000 Kashmiris were butchered, and since then, this inhumane butchering of the Kashmiris is continuing unabated. According to the statistics, since 1989, 95,147 innocent Kashmiris have been martyred by Indian occupation forces, out of which 7,115 Kashmiris were killed during custody. 144,957 have been arrested since 1989. Over 109,073 shops and houses were destroyed. 22,887 women have been widowed by killing their husbands. And 107,735 children have been orphaned by the Indian troops. 11,096 women have been raped by the Indian troops. In the name of Operation All Out, Kashmiri's genocide is being committed in the occupied Kashmir. Kashmiri youth are declared terrorists and picked from their homes. Later, they are martyred in fake encounters and buried in nameless graves spread over various parts of the valley, or their dead bodies are thrown on the sides of deserted roads to terrorize the people of Kashmir and force them to distance themselves from the freedom movement.
One particular Indian law gives security forces virtual immunity against prosecution for any human rights violation. The report found that in the nearly 28 years that the law has been enforced in Jammu and Kashmir, there has not been a single prosecution of armed forces personnel granted by the central government.
The question arises as to who will come to the rescue of the hapless Kashmiris. Definitely, this is the responsibility of the United Nations and the world powers to pressurize India to stop this genocide. But unfortunately, due to financial and trade-related interests, they are silent spectators to the illegal occupation of India. During the past 7 decades, India, in its effort to justify its illegal occupation of the state, has adopted many tactics. Every now and then, India stages the drama of sham elections in the occupied Kashmir and gives the impression that elections will substitute Kashmiri's right to self-will. United Nations and the world community is fully aware of the real situation in Kashmir, but their silence is a big question mark. Under Article 35A of the Indian Constitution, non-Kashmiri cannot purchase property in the state, nor can cast vote. No non-Kashmiri can get Kashmiri's identity card or passport. Even today, over 80% population of Kashmir is Muslim, and this fact is the biggest hurdle in the path of India. During the past 70 years, India has been running away from the promise of the plebiscite as it fully realizes what will be the verdict of Kashmiris. India adopted several tactics to overcome this hurdle. Separate colonies for Pandits, planned to construct colonies for families of the Indian Army personnel deployed in Kashmir, reconstruction of Hindu ashram in Kashmir, and attracting Indian government servants through various incentives to work in Kashmir are some of the ploys adopted to change the demography of Kashmir. But so far, none of these could deliver the dividend. Now, through conspiracy, it has been planned to abolish Article 35 of the Constitution, which grants Kashmir a special status. First of all, a countrywide campaign was launched through the hardline Hindu organizations, and then a writ was filed in the Supreme Court to get the article removed from the Constitution, proceedings of which are continuing nowadays. Incidents of custodial killings and extrajudicial killings have further increased as the army personnel have no fear of law. The most unfortunate aspect of this situation is that the Indian occupation forces have denied entry of human rights organizations and their activists in the valley to cover the gross human rights violations at the hand of Indian Army and security forces. Even Kashmir's religious rights are usurped, as they are not allowed to offer Eid and Friday prayers, with their freedom-loving Kashmiris take the streets on the call of real leadership. Whenever fewer of the martyred Kashmiris' youth are taken out, tens of thousands of Kashmiris throng and give clear message to the Indian Army that they will have to quit Kashmir. Every Kashmiri hates Indian occupation forces, and time is not far off that India will have to quit this paradise on earth. The United Nations and the world community should get up from their slumber and play their due role in grant of Kashmiris their birthright of the right to self-determination, so that they can decide about their own future, as this is the only solution to this long-standing issue and durable peace in South Asia.
You all saw the images from the Kashmir Valley. Now I will request Dr. Imtiaz Khan, Professor of School of Medicine and Health Services at George Washington University, and he hails from the Kashmir Valley. Let's hear his views.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yeah, we are again this year basically commemorating the Black Day in the history of humanity, where justice was chastised, where the people's rights were massacred, and Indian army forcefully occupied Jammu and Kashmir. When India and Pakistan was divided, there were two similar examples like Kashmir. One was the state of Junagadh, another was state of Hyderabad. A Muslim ruler and majority Hindus. Both Nawab of Junagadh and Nizam of Hyderabad wanted to accede to Pakistan, but he was not allowed to do so, because he said it was said because majority belongs to Hindu, so that they have to accede to India. In Kashmir, contrary, Maharaja was a Hindu, but the majority of 70–80% population were Muslims, and they wanted to accede to Pakistan, and they were not allowed by the treachery of the British government, who hid the maps from Qaid-e-Azam. Because in these maps, they had secretly given Gurdaspur to India, so to give them a territorial link. It was Indian Prime Minister who promised Kashmiris that the future of Kashmir will be decided by people of Kashmir. They will be given right of self-determination. But he reneged on his promise. on his promises. And time passed by. Kashmiris are peace-loving people. We don't have arms in our. We said that as a joke that if we have to kill a fowl, we have to go to 5 or 6 neighborhoods to find a sharp knife. But there was resentment. The message was passed to India very clearly that we don't accept Indian population or Indian occupation. When I was in college in the 70s, I have led various demonstrations resenting Indian occupation. And told them clearly, when India doesn't get the message, but they shut the eyes to the message. When Pakistani cricket team plays, they support Pakistani cricket team. Even not only that, the hatred is to that extent. I witnessed a match in 1986 between West Indies and India. And when one West Indies, Desmond Haynes, who was a famous cricket player, he took the catch, and people went on the ground. And he thought they were going to attack him. They were embracing him, that we want you to defeat Indians. And what was in that? There is Amar Singh Club, that huge cricket ground. There was a huge picture of Imran Khan, who was the current Prime Minister of Pakistan, and people shouted, "Hamari Jaan Imran Khan." But in the 80s, new generation came. They said India doesn't understand the language of peace. Let us revitalize this freedom movement. And it was done by leaders like Abdul Hamid Sheikh, Yasin Malik, Ashfaq Majid. All of them are dead, only Yasin Malik is alive. And what India did, it unleashed the reign of terror. One of the examples is in Gaukal, where 250 people were martyred in a single day. And there was one person who was not dead, was supposed to be dead because he thought that they were living alive. And one of the soldiers killed him. Another person says, "Why to kill a dead person? Why to waste a bullet on a dead person?" There was a martyrdom of Maulana Muhammad Farooq, the father of the present Mirwais, Umar Farooq. He was killed by Indian agencies. When funeral procession was held, the people were attacked. Even the dead body would receive bullet injuries. The question is, where in the history of the world you get examples of such brutalities? They don't spare our freedom for those people who work for freedom, not to the people who are on the streets. One example is the human rights activist Jalil Al-Rabi. Jalil Al-Rabi came to the United States. He met officials in the State Department, and he told them the kind of atrocities which are being perpetrated on the innocent people of Kashmir. When he went to Kashmir, he was kidnapped by one major of BS, the border security force, known as Avtar Singh. And 5 days, his family could not find him. They know nothing about their whereabouts. And his body was found on the banks of Jehannam. His legs were broken and his eyes were gouged. There was Punan Poshpura, the hamlet of your villages, where men were taken out and 85 women were raped for a whole night. And women of 85-year-old age were not even spared. If you go to Amazon.com, there's a book on Punan Poshpura. And it's written by 5 young lawyers. I have 6 to 7 copies of that book at home, but I don't read it. Because next day I will have to see the psychiatrist. This is the kind of barbarism which India is showing to world, which is calling the greatest democracy. Shame. There are people say 100,000. It is not 100,000. 136,000 innocent Kashmiris have been murdered. 20,000 women have been raped. And there are thousands of missing persons. And these women and their wives are half widows. They don't know if their husbands are alive or not. There's a lady in India, professor of Indian origin, Angana Chatterjee. She's married to a Jewish gentleman. They are both academicians. She went to Kashmir and with compliance with the Parvez Imroz, his directions, she went and looked around and she found there are 10,000 mass graves. 10,000 mass graves. This is the punishment for which, this is the kind of act which was committed by Saddam Hussein, which was committed by Sultan Mosulli, and for that they have seen the gallows. And when Indian government got the whiff of that, Angana Chatterjee was booted out. She cannot enter India now. Because India has lost a lot to hide. In 2016, Burhan, a young kid who loved cricket, who had aspired to become a doctor, but his brother was killed and he took to not to hit to arms, he just basically sent video messages urging people to fight for freedom. He was first captured and then he was killed. Indian government issued dawn to dusk curfew on that day. And you know what? 300,000 people walked on the foot and attended his funeral. On the contrary, a few months ago, the hand-picked chief minister had died. And there were not 300 people, there were 1,000 people who were muftis, who were dressed as civilians, they were policemen. And the kind of movement which started after the martyrdom of Burhan Wani is exemplary. But the atrocities which were committed on these innocent people, they fired people with spray bullets, these pellet bullets, which you here used for killing the deers. There was this one girl, Shifa. She was standing outside the window, seeing what's going on, and she was sprayed with those bullets and lost her eyesight. About 150 young kids were sprayed by these bullets. Kashmir was in short of ophthalmologists. I was visiting Kashmir those days, and I am seeing what was going on. The ambulances were attacked. The patients who were sick were allowed to die. Anybody who was injured, they were allowed to bleed to death. They attacked hospitals, they attacked the attendants, they attacked the doctors. But salute to the young people of Kashmir. The kind of yeoman service they did out there. They saw to it that sick people got their medicines. They saw to it that hungry people got their food. When I came here, I said that they were collecting money. I told them that I am the son of the soil. What can I do? They told me, Mr. Imtiaz Khan, we know you are from America. And we know you have dollars. You don't need them. You don't need money. But go to Washington, D.C. and knock each and every door and tell them what is going on in Kashmir. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking. When in mosque in DC or Maryland or Virginia, and people, the Imam says that freedom for Palestine, freedom for Yemen or any other country, you have to shake him a little bit. Freedom for Kashmir. Do I have that promise from you guys from today?
Yes. Yes. Oh.
Mr. Ambassador, when the young people die, we wrap them in the Pakistani flags. And what we say, G.A. Pakistan, G.A. Pakistan, Kashmir banega Pakistan. Our 90-year-old leader, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, with 1/4 of kidney and number of ailments, and whose survival is a medical miracle. He rose over the crowd recently saying, Kashmir ki manzil kya hai? Kashmir ki manzil hai Pakistan.
Inshallah.
We are thankful to Prime Minister Imran Khan. In his first victory speech, he said that with India will not be solved without basically taking into consideration the problem of Kashmir. That is the right strategy. He condemned the killing of the Kulgam, which was one of the speakers alluded to. But meanwhile, he was correct. He said, Mr. Prime Minister, we are thankful to you, but token words will not matter. It means action. Pakistan needs to have a strategy. We can be celebrating 27th of October. We can be celebrating this thing. But what is our strategy? In each and every embassy, in Middle East, in European countries and others, there should be a cell on Kashmir. Anything, any killing should be reported, should not be unnoticed. If one Jamal Khashoggi can shake the world, why can't the killing of 125,000 people move the world?
There we go.
our heart beats with the people of Pakistan. We think for the people of Pakistan. My leader, Alisha Gilani, told me clearly, we need a strong Pakistan. And only strong Pakistan can solve the problem of Kashmir. And I don't want to hear Pakistan is weak. I don't want to hear, people of Kashmir don't want to hear that Pakistan is not a important country. Pakistan is a neutral power. Pakistan is a country of 220 million people. Pakistan has geographical borders. And when Pakistan will speak, world has to listen. Our current Prime Minister is a critic. I don't know because I don't know. I am part of Pakistan. In spite of the fact I am a Indian of Pakistan. So he was known as the most successful Japanese President. He's a strategist. He should understand that there has to be a strategy. The token, this demonstration won't help. If we have what we need to do, and every year there should be evaluation. Where we succeeded, where we failed. And that's what people of Kashmir. And without taking any further, I have seen deaths every year I go to Kashmir, I'm going. It is hard. It's hard to see that people I am meeting this year, whether they will be alive next year. One person, once I was speaking in this very embassy, one of the ladies who's a sort of friend of my wife who's sitting behind, told me that, why did you get so emotional? I said, if you had heard what happened in Pushpura, I blame myself. Why doesn't, if world doesn't know it, it is my fault. It is my shortcoming. There's something I'm not doing right. If world doesn't know about Jalil Andrabi, it is my fault. And I will try my best. I have tried it in the past. I will try it every day. I'll be again next year. I will be reminding people. And inshallah, Kashmir will be attained its freedom. And Kashmir banega Pakistan. Inshallah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for those moving words and emotions. I would now like to request Ambassador Tawqir Hussain, who is a former ambassador of Pakistan and an adjunct professor at Georgetown University, as well as a faculty member at Syracuse University, to kindly come and share his views with us.
Excellency Ambassador Ali Jani, distinguished members of the Kashmiri community, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Imtiaz is justified in saying that Pakistan needs to have a strategy. Well, I don't know about Pakistan, but I do have a strategy, and I'm going to talk about that. Because that is an important subject. But we also have a very, very realistic, without being realistic, no strategy works. You need to be inspired, that is true, but the action also needs a reality check. So bear with me, I'm going to be too candid and honest in some of the things, but at the heart I am for Kashmiris, and my heart gives as much as for the Kashmiris, and wishing them freedom and hopefully we will see it sooner than later. Kashmir stands at an historic moment. Kashmir has been restless ever since the Indian occupation, and has passed through periods of turmoil from time to time. But what we are witnessing now is unprecedented. It's not an uprising, insurgency, or a revolt. It's a revolution, almost. Kashmiris have clearly demonstrated that they have rejected the brutal Indian occupation. No doubt about that. Now they are not seeking a redress of their grievances. They are seeking a change of destiny, and with their own hands. International community has let them down. It has shown no conscience. Indeed, everybody has failed the Kashmiris, but not Pakistan. Pakistan has been on the front lines of the Kashmiris fight, but it has also paid a price for it. Enemies of Kashmir have doubled down on Pakistan as well. India knows that the success of the Kashmir cause depends on two facts. First, the strength of the Kashmiri freedom movement, and second, Pakistan's support to Kashmir's cause. So it's not Kashmiris that are standing in India's way. Pakistan does too. So the Indian strategy is twofold. On one hand, unleash extreme repressive measures to bludgeon the Kashmiris into submission, and on the other hand, launch a campaign of isolating and defaming Pakistan and to put it on the defensive and off balance. The idea is to force Pakistan to back away from supporting the Kashmiris and to marginalize Pakistan, and then, as a consequence, weaken the Kashmiris and impose India's will on them. India has used its influence in Washington also to get it on her side. Both the United States and India need each other. The United States needs India to balance, to contain China, and India needs the United States as a source of capital and technology, and as a partner in fulfilling Indian national security and foreign policy objectives. And both have shared perceptions of Pakistan. They are using each other to advance their respective interests in Pakistan. With such interlocking interests on a broad range of issues, both the United States and India are turning a blind eye to each other's mistakes. Such is the painful reality of international politics. And that includes not only policymakers, but I'm afraid the think tank community as well. Think tanks, with some notable exceptions of outstanding scholarship, much of the think tank community invariably embraces politically correct narratives and shun taboo subjects. They are not immune to ideology, politics, self-interest, and personal ambition. Let's be honest about that. That is the crux of the neglect that Kashmir suffers at the hands of Washington. So don't expect any help from Washington in solving the Kashmir dispute. Even China and the Islamic world pay only lip service. They too have important interests in India, or they have domestic trouble spots inclining them to identify with India's problem in Kashmir. No wonder Prime Minister Modi is brutally suppressing the Kashmiris, unconcerned like Israel about the international community reaction. And he is getting away with it. For how long? With all these sources of external help having weakened or preoccupied or fighting their own battles, and regional and geopolitical factors having turned negative, and the world's conscience having become numb, one would have thought Kashmiris would have their backs to the wall, but not so. Kashmiris have shown what so many weak but morally strong, brave and determined people have done throughout the human history. They have taken ownership of their own cause. Effectively, that means the entire burden of realizing the aspirations of Kashmiris has now fallen on the shoulders of Kashmiris and Pakistan. Kashmiris know that. The Kashmir movement is now stronger than ever before. After years of repression and humiliation, the critical mass for the movement was there, but it was provided a trigger in 2016 by the killing of Burhan Wani. The youth that was once a follower is now a leader. Better educated, some educated abroad, and attuned to contemporary modes of activism, especially adept at social media and provocative videos. The youth are now the driving force of the movement. The future of Kashmir rests with them. But Kashmiris still need Pakistan. They would not have come this far without Pakistan's help. And as they move forward, Pakistan's help would be even more critical. This is what Mirwais Umar Farooq tweeted in response to Prime Minister Imran Khan's tweet expressing concern and condemnation over the last weekend violence by India against innocent Kashmiris. Mirwais said in his tweet, Kashmir appreciates Pakistan's concern, but to put an end to the appalling grind of repression and human rights abuse that Kashmiris are suffering at the hands of India's state urgently requires Pakistan as a party to the dispute to do much more. Mirwais had a point, and so does Dr. Ziad. You have a point. Indeed, Pakistan needs to do much more. But what Mirwais does not understand or appreciate is that present-day Pakistan, facing its own challenges, and which has already done much more than it cannot do more without getting stronger. Only a stronger, more prosperous, and stable Pakistan can do more for Kashmir. That's a fact. That's fair to face it. Here I have advice for both Pakistan and Kashmiris to achieve their common goal. Countries are like individuals. They don't change their behavior easily or voluntarily. The change comes with compulsion and incentive. India has to be compelled to change its position on Kashmir. But that will not be enough. It has to be offered an incentive as well. It would not like to appear as having been defeated. No power likes to feel that. Now, what can Pakistan and Kashmiris do to this end? Pakistan cannot compel India, but it can offer incentive. Kashmiris cannot offer incentive, but they can compel. Let's first see what Pakistan can do. As I said, it has to become stronger for its own sake and for the sake of Kashmiris. And here is what Pakistan can do to become stronger. Let's be honest, you cannot handle serious domestic and external challenges simultaneously. We need to prioritize and focus our resources and energy on more critical issues. Let's put the relations with India on the back burner. Pakistan can hold itself up against India. With a good professional army and the nuclear capability, Pakistan need not worry about threat from India. No point in seeking a dialogue with India, to be very honest, if India doesn't want to talk. Absolutely no point. How can you expect them to give any concession if they're not even interested in talking?
That's right.
I mean, why we are asking for a dialogue? Because our purpose of dialogue is to get the relationship moving and get something done on Kashmir. So if they don't want to talk, you think they are going to give you concessions? Instead, India is tempted to harm Pakistan because it feels Pakistan is vulnerable. So for them, harming Pakistan is more beneficial than talking to Pakistan. A stronger Pakistan will be beyond harm. And that will force India to change its attitude. Let's face it, it's not India that is hindering the rise of Pakistan. It's we who have limited ourselves. We have great potential, but we have not realized it. We should focus on internal challenges and externally on Afghanistan, which for us is as much internal as external challenge. Pakistan holds the key to the stabilization of Afghanistan. A stable Afghanistan enhances Pakistan's stability, and both Pakistan and Afghanistan can enable Pakistan to become a hub for oil and gas pipelines and trade with Central Asia. Without that, even CPEC will remain a pipe dream. Once that happens, Pakistan's value as an economic partner for India, which seeks economic rise, will be irresistible. I don't know how India can then resist not having a relationship with Pakistan. Right now, there are no such prospects, so India is not losing nothing by not talking to Pakistan. Imagine with a stable Afghanistan and economically stronger Pakistan, for which Pakistan has the necessary resources, will and determination, what the picture will be. Even Pakistan may realize what it has been missing. With most favored nation state status and transit rights to Central Asia, access to pipelines, and trade and prospects of Central and South Asia as an integrated market, how can India resist? That will be the incentive to India for Pakistan, from Pakistan. Now, what will be the compulsion? That has to come from the Kashmiris. My advice to Kashmiris, please consider all these limitations and keep fighting and raise the level of your resistance. Energize and organize the Kashmiri diaspora abroad, especially in the United States. Learn from other resistance movements. That will force India to change its approach. Even mighty empires have fallen when there is a resistance and there is a freedom movement. Ultimately, the solution of Kashmir will have to be in the context of normal relations between India and Pakistan. India has to be given confidence that by losing Kashmir, it will be gaining somewhere. And it will be a win-win for the region, for India, for Pakistan, and for Kashmir. My concluding remarks, both Pakistan and Kashmiri have to travel some distance before they reach a destination. For the Pakistan, the lesson is that good diplomacy comes with national strength, and for Kashmiris, the lesson is there's a price for freedom, and that is suffering and sacrifice. I wish both the Kashmiris and Pakistan good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now request Ambassador Ali Jahangir Siddiqui to kindly come on stage and share his views.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. The conduct of the Indian government with regard to Kashmir is an important issue. I ask you to spend some time understanding it. I would like to summarize this issue not in my words, but in the words of the United Nations. As you know, the UN Office for the High Commissioner for Human Rights published a report in June 2018 that the Prime Minister of Azad Jammu and Kashmir alluded to. I know it's a big ask to ask anyone to read a 49-page report, but I therefore decided to summarize it so you can listen to this for a few minutes and you'll have good context. I have made an effort to quote directly as much as possible and also to be complete rather than be contextually selective. Let us begin with the conditions that the report speaks about. Let us begin with the law. The UN report speaks about two laws. The first one, the Kashmir Public Safety Act, appears in the UN's words to be used to circumvent the protections of ordinary criminal procedure. Individuals can be held without charge or trial for up to 2 years. 4. Acting in any manner prejudicial to the security of the state, or just for preventing the maintenance of public order. Think about that for a moment. You can be held without charge or without trial for 2 years if you fail to help with the maintenance of public order. In 2012, this law was amended to prohibit the detention of minors. But in 2016, there were multiple cases of children under 18 being detained under this law. This is the Kashmir Public Safety Act. The second law is the Armed Forces Jammu and Kashmir Special Powers Act, which I must point out was put into force retrospectively. That is to say, it applied in the past after it was passed for things that happened previously. This law provides immunity from prosecution in civilian courts for the conduct of security forces. In other words, security forces cannot be prosecuted for anything that would be a crime in a civilian court unless the government of India pre-authorizes it. The Prime Minister of Azad Jammu and Kashmir said this in his remarks. He said that in the last 28 years, while this law has been in place, until this report was published in June 2018 this year, in the last 28 years, the government of India has failed to grant permission for any member of the armed forces to be prosecuted in a civilian court. Then we speak about lethal force. The use of lethal force is allowed not just in cases of self-defense, but it's also allowed for contravening laws or orders prohibiting the assembly of 5 or more persons. For this, you are allowed the use of lethal force. A committee of the Indian government recommended in 2012 that cases of sexual violence by the armed forces be brought out of the purview of this law. But this recommendation has not yet been implemented. What do these protections of law result in? Now that the legal cover exists, what has happened? The state government has said that 9,042 people were injured via bullets, metal pellets fired from shotguns which have caused the blinding of nearly 800 victims, and chemical shells. 9,000 victims with all this horror between July 2016 and February 2018. In other words, these statistics apply to only 8 months. 9,000 people and 8 months. And there were many deaths. The UN notes that the Srinagar-based Jammu Kashmir Coalition of Civil Society recorded 105 people who were killed in the 6 months from July to December of 2016. These people were killed from pellet shootings, bullets, tear gas shells, drowning, inhaling chemical shell fumes, and shooting by unidentified men. It's surprising that the UN has noted that no inquiries into these matters have been completed, and this has been reported by their state government. Then we speak about detentions. A right to information application found that over 1,000 people were detained between March 2016 and August 2017. Over the 17-month period, 1,000 people were detained. Human rights groups have warned that minors were picked up, and so have opposition parties, but this, of course, has been denied by the authorities. In 2014, the the Committee on the Rights of the Child called upon India to review its security laws with a view to prohibit criminal and administrative proceedings against persons under the age of 18. Then we speak about torture. There are well-documented cases of deaths under torture. In 2016, as an example, the 30-year-old college lecturer Shabir Ahmed Mangu was killed after being tortured. There are acts such as the tying and strapping of Farooq Ahmed Dar to the front of a jeep in 2017, and he was driven around for 28 kilometers tied to a military jeep. In May 2017, the Indian Army presented an award to the soldier accused of ordering this action. Mr. Dar was awarded compensation of about $15,000, but the state government has refused to pay it. Then we speak about disappearance and mass graves. Civil society organizations admit to the disappearance of 8,000 people, and the state government admits to 4,000 of them being missing, most of whom they claim have crossed over into Pakistan. The report states that impunity for enforced disappearances in Kashmir continues, as there is little movement towards credibly investigating these complaints, including into alleged sites of mass graves in the Kashmir Valley and Jammu region. On one hand, we are told that they have crossed over. On the other hand, the Jammu and Kashmir Human Rights Commission in 2011 conducted its own investigation into mass graves in northern Kashmir and identified 574 bodies out of a total of 2,156 bodies they found. For brevity, I will not summarize the violations of the right to health, restrictions on the freedom of expression, reprisals against human rights defenders, restrictions on journalists, violations of the right to education, or abuses by armed groups, all of which the report speaks about. But I will summarize the section on sexual violence. The UN Commission received 143 documented cases of alleged sexual violence. Please bear in mind that sexual violence, or much of sexual violence, is not documented or even reported. And I will tell you why. In 2014, the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women expressed particular concern about, quote, the provision of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, requiring prior authorization by the government to prosecute a member of the armed forces, the security forces, and the reportedly high risk of reprisals against women who complained about the conduct of security forces. The UN report noted that the Kunan Pashpora mass rape as a significant case for which attempts to seek justice have been denied and blocked over the years by authorities at different levels. Also, an expert committee established to review India's laws against sexual assault in the aftermath of the landmark 2012 Delhi gang rape case stated that the Armed Forces Special Powers Act legitimized impunity for sexual violence and recommended its amendment to bring it under the purview of ordinary criminal law, thereby doing away with the need for the sanction of the Indian government for prosecution of an armed forces officer. The central government did not accept this recommendation. However, the government did accept the committee's recommendation to remove the need for the government's permission to prosecute civil public servants, not armed forces, but civil public servants who have been accused of rape. What I have summarized are not my words. They are the words of the United Nations. To my American friends, I have a simple ask. Please discuss Kashmir. Come to your own conclusion. There is simply too much pain and suffering in Kashmir, and I appeal to your humanity on this day to be curious and also to be compassionate. Please discuss the UN Security Council resolutions on Kashmir and ask the government of India to implement the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. We join the international community to express our complete solidarity with our Kashmiri brethren who continue to suffer every single day. Pakistan will continue to extend its total and unflinching moral, political, and diplomatic support for the just struggle of the Kashmiri people and their right to self-determination. I would also like to thank my fellow speakers and the audience for joining us today. Pakistan Zindabad.
So we have a few minutes. If you permit, we can have a couple of questions. If any of you have questions, I would like to request you to kindly introduce yourself and also your affiliation, if there is, with any organization, and kindly limit yourself to a question rather than any comments or observations. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Chand Iqbal Dodi. I'm the co-treasury chairman of PDI DC. I have a question, Mr. Ambassador. Sorry we will miss you. You've done a wonderful job in a short period of time. Highly recommended, but unfortunately that's the common. But at the same time, is it possible Pakistan could take a stand, take the Modi government to a war criminal court? Is it possible? What we should do in order to do that? Should we sign a petition from metropolitan area, or do everything in order to address this issue?
I cannot speak for a recommendation to your area because that's a domestic issue for yourselves. I can say that that Pakistan is trying very hard. As you know, the Prime Minister said in his speech, one of his earliest speech, and he spoke about rebuilding ties with India. As Ambassador we noted, there are steps to this process. And as a follow-on from that speech, the meeting was going to be held at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly between the Indian External Affairs Minister and our Foreign Minister. But after accepting, India soon after accepting declined the request for the meeting. So it's unfortunate that Pakistan is not getting the traction from the other side. Be engaged, but we are working very hard, and of course Kashmir is at the forefront of our agenda. Thank you.
Just to address a specific point that you have asked, for any issue to be taken to the international courts that are there, consent of both is required. So both parties to the conflict have to have consent, and in cases where there are decisions, those decisions are again not in that sense binding.
I know, but this is not an international dispute matter I'm talking about. I'm talking about the genocide action by the civilian government Modi regime. So can we address this one into a war criminal? That's my point. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? With that, I would like to thank all of you for your participation. And just to sum up, we would like to thank His Excellency President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Saddam Masood Khan, for sharing this message. We'd also like to thank our eminent panel of speakers, each of whom presented their own take on this dispute. And we all thank the students who have come here from various universities, all our distinguished guests who are here with us tonight. Thank you, and we all hope and pray that Kashmir once again becomes an issue that the international community will pay the rightful attention to, and we hope and pray that Kashmir dispute is resolved sooner rather than later, inshallah. Thank you, and please join us for dinner downstairs.